The perfect anniversary getaway in the Maldives was meant to be the pinnacle of a 30-year marriage. But everything changed in a single evening, when over a glass of wine, the woman he loved spoke words that chilled him to the bone. It wasn't a jealous outburst, nor a hidden affair, something far worse. It was brutal honesty wrapped in cynicism, betrayal disguised as a relationship refresh. Behind one door, a luxury villa, romance and champagne. Behind another, a law that doesn't forgive. When emotions boil and the face you've shared half your life with turns into a cold mask of indifference, there's only one option left. Take action. Coldly, deliberately, without mercy. What began as a dream vacation would spiral into an international scandal, an arrest, disgrace, and an ending no one would ever forget. Not all betrayals end in tears, some end in criminal charges. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. As our plane touched down on the shimmering islands of the Maldives, I turned to Kendra, squeezed her hand, and grinned. "Can you believe it's been 30 years?" I asked. She laughed gently, her eyes bright with affection. "I believe it, and I wouldn't trade a moment," she replied. We left the aircraft, the humid, inviting air wrapping around us as we made our way to the terminal, both of us buzzing with anticipation for this anniversary trip. The resort itself seemed almost unreal, with flawless white beaches and endless blue waters stretching as far as the eye could see. I was still lost in the beauty of our surroundings when a familiar voice called out, "Lucas? Kendra?" Spinning around, I spotted Marissa and her husband Jordan walking toward us. Marissa, who I used to work with, looked just as surprised as I felt. "What are the chances?" she said, her smile wide. "Small world," I replied, shaking Jordan's hand. Marissa's grin widened. "Seriously, we just needed to get away for a bit. Work has been exhausting." Kendra joined in with a friendly nod. "Same for us. We're here to celebrate." We shared a few pleasantries, promising to catch up again soon, and went our separate ways. The afternoon slipped away as Kendra and I unpacked, settled in, and strolled along the sun-drenched shoreline. Everything felt perfect. Later that evening, sitting together on the balcony of our villa, a bottle of wine between us, Kendra turned to me with a strange, unreadable look. "There's something I have to tell you," she said suddenly. I set down my glass, a wave of unease washing over me. "What's going on?" I asked. She paused, took a deep breath, and finally spoke. "I want to sleep with Jordan." I stared at her, thinking I must have misunderstood her words. "What did you say?" She looked straight at me, her expression calm and certain. "I've thought about this a lot. There's something between Jordan and me. Now that we're all here, it just feels like the right moment." My stomach twisted. "You can't be serious," I managed to say. She shook her head. "I am, Lucas." I let out a harsh laugh, unable to hide my disbelief. "On our anniversary trip, you're telling me you want to sleep with another man? With Jordan?" She reached out, but I pulled away. "It isn't about hurting you," she insisted. "I just need this, just for one night. It won't change what we have." My thoughts spun out of control, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. It was obvious this wasn't a fleeting idea or a result of too much wine. She had made up her mind. After a long, heavy silence, I finally let out a breath and said, "No." I stared at Kendra, my mind reeling, heart pounding. For a moment, I wondered if this was some sort of elaborate joke, but the unwavering look on her face told me she meant every word. "So, you've been planning this?" I asked, my voice rough and edged with shock. She nodded, calm as ever. "Yes. Marissa and I discussed it weeks ago. She's okay with it. Actually, she's always found you attractive," Kendra added, her tone matter-of-fact. Frustrated, I ran my hand through my hair. And you assumed I'd be fine with this? Did you just expect me to jump into bed with Marissa while you're with Jordan? Kendra sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. That's not the point, Lucas. This is about bringing some excitement back, feeling really alive again, she said, her tone soft but determined. Jordan is full of life, energetic. I miss that spark. And let's be honest, you've noticed Marissa too. She's young and beautiful. Maybe this is something new we can share, openly and honestly. No secrets. My jaw tightened as I shook my head. You honestly think this will fix anything between us? I asked. She didn't hesitate. I do. We've spent 30 years together, Lucas. We built a life, raised a daughter, shared everything. But if we're honest with ourselves, things aren't what they once were. The spark, the passion, it's faded. This trip isn't just a celebration. It's a chance to rediscover what we've lost. Maybe this is what we need. My laughter sounded bitter as I gripped the balcony railing. So your solution is to sleep with someone else? Kendra gave a small, reassuring smile. It's not betrayal, she said quietly. It's about exploring something new. Jordan brings a different energy, and I want that. Marissa wants you. We could do this together, Lucas. It might be good for both of us. I felt every muscle tense as I looked at her, my wife of 30 years, the woman I had built my life around, the mother of our child. Her words echoed inside me, each one sharper than the last. If you go through with this, I said quietly but with certainty, we're done. Kendra didn't so much as blink. She stood there, arms crossed and head tilted, her expression as casual as if I'd told her the weather looked nice. Lucas, I paid for this trip, and I intend to make the most of it. If you want to sulk, be my guest, but I'm not going to let you spoil this for me. My fists tightened, knuckles white. So this was what 3 decades together came down to? Our anniversary, reduced to her just doing whatever she pleased? She exhaled, her tone unshaken. It's not cheating if I'm being upfront with you. Honestly, if you refuse, I'll just invite both of them anyway. I have zero qualms. Nausea churned in my gut, a cold wave of dread passing through me. Picturing my wife in another man's embrace was bad enough, but now she dangled the possibility of a threesome in front of me, almost daring me to feel the sting. Anger flooded through me, my jaw clamped shut. If you've already made up your mind, Kendra, then there's really nothing left here worth salvaging. Breath shaky, I tried to control the fury burning in my veins. Fine, go ahead. Run to Jordan. Have your fun. Have your night with both of them. Just don't expect me to stick around afterward. She stayed impassive, her composure unbroken. I shot her a final bitter glare, my voice dripping with disdain. You might as well start looking for a divorce lawyer. With that, I turned and left. By the time I got back to the villa, I was still fuming, half hoping, despite everything, that she'd had a change of heart. But she stood in front of the mirror, calmly fixing her hair, lipstick poised, preparing for a rendezvous, only not with me. She glanced over with a sly smile. Here's your last chance, she said, her voice sweet, but poisoned. You can either spend tonight with a gorgeous young woman or stay here and imagine me with Jordan and Marissa. Up to you. Her words hung in the air, a taunt more than a choice. I took a step closer, an icy smile forming. My reply was cold as stone, each word laced with venom. One final opportunity, Kendra. You can either try to fix what's left of us or live with what comes next. And I guarantee, when I'm finished, no one will be able to help you. She scoffed, rolling her eyes and flicking her hand in dismissal. Don't threaten me, Lucas. You don't own me. I've given you 30 years of my life, stayed faithful, and for what? She turned back to her reflection, her face set. Being with you is lifeless. I feel nothing, just numbness and routine. Most of the time, I have to pretend it's anything else. Her eyes found mine in the mirror, lips curling into a sneer. So do us both a favor and stop embarrassing yourself." Something inside me gave way. If Kendra wanted to fight dirty, I was ready to match her. She'd spent the whole day tearing me apart, treating me like an obstacle in her path, but she seemed to forget I wasn't built to just sit and take it. I closed the distance between us, my words coming out sharp and frigid. "Since you're so eager to take this road, let me give you something back, darling." I let the term sting, watching her composure flicker. "You call me boring?" "Here's the truth, sweetheart. Being with you is about as thrilling as watching paint dry in a thunderstorm. Every time it's like dragging a razor over a sunburn." Her face tightened, but I didn't stop. "And while we're being honest, let's not pretend you're a catch either. It's like something crawled up inside you and died. The stench is getting harder to ignore." Her eyes burned with fury, but I held her gaze, letting a cold smirk cross my face. "So, no, you weren't the only one faking it. I kept trying because I cared. But since you're intent on humiliating me, I might as well return the favor." She stared daggers at me, fists clenched. I reached over, grabbed my electric trimmer from the nightstand, and tossed it onto the bed. "No matter how much you dress up tonight, I know where this ends. Here, take the trimmer. Jordan might thank me for the tip." For the first time, her confidence wavered. She stiffened, anger flaring behind her eyes. Maybe it was the insult, or maybe she just didn't expect me to stand up to her. Regardless, the mask was starting to slip. Still, she turned away, grabbing her perfume and spraying herself as if drowning in scent could cover up the betrayal. I watched her, silent, my rage cooling into a sharp, hardened resolve. She had made her play. Now it was my turn. Perched on the edge of the bed, I stretched out my legs and let a knowing smirk linger on my face. She might think she was orchestrating the night, but she couldn't see how deep the damage already went. Nothing could undo what had already been done. It was her choices that had reduced our marriage to ruins, yet here she was, expecting me to sort through the debris. Her heels struck the floor with each step, echoing through the room as she moved with a poise that faltered just beneath the surface. She hesitated in the doorway, a small shiver running through her posture. Glancing back at me, she searched my expression for any trace of surrender, maybe hoping I'd give in. Perhaps she thought I'd chase after her, reach for her hand, and plead with her to stay. But I only leaned forward, elbows braced on my knees, and let out a low chuckle. "You left the trimmer," I said. Her lips thinned, irritation flickering in her gaze, but she said nothing. With no reply, she slipped out of the room. Not once did she turn to look at me. Left alone, I stared at the void where she'd stood, feeling my chest ache with a sorrow I wished I could ignore. 3 decades, 30 years of shared laughter, hardship, and love, erased in a single night. And for what? All for a brief romance with someone younger? To try and reclaim a lost youth no matter what we had built together? I let out a heavy sigh, gripping my phone as the full weight of the situation settled over me. There was no salvaging our marriage. It was over, but I refused to let her walk away without facing the fallout. My thumb hovered over my contacts until I found Brielle, my daughter, my constant supporter. She picked up after one ring. "Dad?" she answered, her voice thick with sleep and worry. "Why are you calling so late?" Swallowing, I steadied myself before speaking. "Brielle, your mother's gone to be with a younger man tonight. She set up this entire trip for that reason. She told me herself." My voice caught, but I forced myself to keep going. "I'm leaving. I'll catch the first flight home. She can stay here." "What?" Brielle sounded shocked, her voice rising. "Dad, please, slow down." She pressed for more details. Running my hand through my hair, I clenched my jaw. "I just needed you to hear it from me," I said, hesitating at what I knew I had to say next. "I'm sorry for what I'm about to do." "Dad, wait." What do you mean? What are you going to do? She pleaded, alarmed. I gave her no answer, just ended the call before she could ask any more. My heart raced as I stared at the phone in my hand. Determined, I dialed the hotel reception. Good evening, Mr. Whitmore. How can we help you? The receptionist was unfailingly polite. I inhaled slowly, steadying myself. I need to report something to the police. Back in the States, two women together might barely raise an eyebrow. But here in the Maldives, it was a different matter. Sharia law's Section 411 was clear. Same-sex relationships could mean up to 8 years in prison, plus 100 lashes. Kendra had chosen her path. Now it was up to me to finish the story. The police arrived soon after, two officers in immaculate uniforms stepping into the lobby, cautious yet courteous. I greeted them and gestured for them to sit. Officer Rahman folded his arms. Sir, you requested immediate assistance. What's the issue? Leaning forward, I spoke quietly. It's a delicate situation. My wife and another woman are currently breaking Section 411 of your laws. I paused, letting the weight of my words hang. This is incredibly hard for me, but I respect your country's laws. They should apply to everyone, regardless of who's involved. The younger officer glanced at Rahman, uncertainty in his eyes. Sir, these are foreign nationals. Handling such cases is complex. I shook my head, feigning regret. I do understand, but for laws to mean anything, they must be upheld without exception. Otherwise, what's their purpose? I took out my wallet and placed several fresh bills on the table. Of course, I know this is not simple. Please consider this a small gesture of appreciation for your time, your discretion, and your commitment to justice. Rahman's gaze lingered on the money before he spoke. We'll look into it, he said cautiously. I sat back, nodding with satisfaction. That's all I ask. I'm just a man who believes in the rule of law. Decades spent as a salesman had prepared me for this moment. I'd just brokered the most consequential deal of my life. Retribution, disguised as a plea for justice. Almost 2 hours had passed by the time I packed the last shirt into my suitcase. Right then, my phone rang. Kendra's name appeared on the screen. Of course it did. I didn't answer, letting the call fade out. Moments later, another buzz. Persistent, as always. A touch of desperation, I mused, the corners of my mouth lifting in a subtle, sardonic smile. I carried on zipping up my bag, undisturbed. After all, she'd started this entire mess. Now she could deal with the consequences. I swept my gaze around the room one last time, making sure I wasn't forgetting anything. That's when I spotted Kendra's passport lying unnoticed on the nightstand. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand, and with little hesitation, slipped it into my own luggage. How forgetful of me, I thought, feigning innocence as I muttered the words under my breath. What an oversight. A dry, mirthless laugh escaped me. With my suitcase trailing behind, I made my way down to the lobby, the wheels making a gentle clicking sound across the floor. The receptionist acknowledged me with a polite nod as I approached the desk. Checking out, sir? He asked. That's right, I replied, handing over my card. I'll just settle my share. I offered a practiced shrug. My wife's things are still in the room. She'll take care of her end. The clerk paused for a second, uncertainty flickering across his face. Will your wife be staying on? He ventured. I gave him a tight-lipped smile. That's her decision, I said coolly. I won't be around to see what she chooses. He completed the transaction, handed me my receipt, and wished me a good journey. Thank you for your stay, sir. Safe travels. I'm sure I will, I replied, collecting my things and heading out the door. At the airport, I moved through security without incident, a surprising calm settling over me. The previous hours had been a blur, but now, as I waited at the gate for my flight, a sense of accomplishment took hold, something I hadn't felt in ages. When I finally made it home and stepped into the familiar hallway, I hadn't even finished setting down my bags before I heard someone coming. Turning, I saw Brielle in the living room, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She'd made it back before me. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice sharp and accusing. I raised an eyebrow, letting my suitcase fall to the floor. "Well, that's a nice greeting," I answered, feigning obliviousness. But Brielle wasn't interested in pleasantries. "Drop the act, Dad," she shot back, taking a step forward. "Mom's in jail." She barely paused, the words spilling out in a rush, tight with anger and disbelief. "Everyone's trying to get her out, and you're here acting like nothing happened." I took a slow breath and kept my voice calm. "I really don't know what you're talking about," I replied evenly. Brielle's hands balled into fists. "Mom was with Jordan and Marissa," she blurted, her whole body trembling. "There was a raid, no warning, the police stormed the villa. All three were arrested, and the charges are serious. She could get up to 8 years if convicted." Leaning against the kitchen counter, I crossed my arms and let a frosty, almost satisfied smile touch my lips. 8 years, I echoed, letting the words hang in the air. That's a stiff sentence for one night with someone half your age. I shook my head, releasing a brittle chuckle. Guess chasing after lost youth comes at a price. Brielle's eyes blazed. "This isn't funny, Dad!" she shouted. "We need to help her." I sighed and motioned toward the couch. "No," I said, my voice firm. She stared at me, speechless. "What are you saying?" she managed, her voice cracking. I looked her in the eye, unmoved. "Tomorrow morning I'm filing for divorce," I declared, each word deliberate. Brielle's face contorted with disbelief. "You can't just do that," she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. My gaze hardened. "I can, and I will," I replied coldly. "You'll see." She looked at me as if I'd slapped her. "Your mother humiliated me," I went on, my voice low and steady. "Did she really think I'd just take her back and pretend nothing happened?" I leaned in, making sure every word struck home. "Even the most beautiful roses have thorns, Brielle." She pressed her lips together, swallowing hard. Now she gets to feel what it's like. Brielle left that night without another word. I let her go, didn't call after her, just watched her walk out and felt the burden of my choice settle heavily on my chest, heavier than I'd expected. But I was determined. There would be no turning back. The next morning I found myself in my lawyer's office. Across the desk sat a man in his 50s, glasses perched on his nose, flipping through the stack of papers I'd brought. His eyes widened as he recognized the name. He looked up at me, clearly taken aback. "Wait, Kendra? Kendra Whitmore?" I leaned back in my chair and nodded. "That's right." He let out a slow whistle, shaking his head. "So you're the husband everyone's been hearing about in the news." I furrowed my brow, pretending not to understand. "She's all over the news," he said, incredulity written all over his face. "You haven't seen a single report? This has gone worldwide." He explained that the U.S. Embassy was working frantically to get them out. They'd even put out a formal warning, advising Americans to steer clear of any behavior that might offend countries with strict laws. He shook his head and gave a low laugh, still in disbelief. "That blew up way faster than anyone expected." I let out a breath, half amused. "You're not wrong," I replied. The lawyer flashed a smile. "If you want, I'd be happy to take your case. Actually, I'll even give you a discount." I raised an eyebrow. "How generous of you." He shrugged, unfazed. "To be honest, I'm thinking about making this a public spectacle, a case that really sends a message. With all this publicity, it could be a career changer for me." He leaned in, a sly grin tugging at his lips. And since Kendra was so desperate for attention, why not give her real fame? He was practically vibrating with excitement. I hesitated, letting it all sink in. Kendra had always chased after youth and excitement, and now She was caught in a whirlwind she couldn't escape. There was something almost poetic about it. I nodded. Let's do it. By the next day, my name was everywhere. TV anchors picked the story apart, their concern clearly for show. Headlines blared about betrayal, scandal, and a mess that spanned continents. Heartbroken husband files for divorce after wife sparks global incident. I drank my coffee, amused by the spectacle. I could just imagine Kendra, trapped somewhere, forced to watch as her reputation was torn apart on national television. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, interview requests, invitations to appear on talk shows. I ignored them all, refusing to speak to the press. 2 weeks later, Kendra was brought home. Thanks to intervention from the embassy, she and her companions were finally freed from their ordeal. She landed back in the U.S., humiliated, but at least no longer detained. I knew exactly where she'd go first, our house. I made sure to be ready. When she finally showed up, dragging her suitcase to the front door, I barely cracked it open, just enough for the process server to step forward. A man in an immaculate suit approached, holding out documents. "Kendra Whitmore?" he asked. Kendra looked from him to me, panic filling her eyes. "Lucas, please." The man cut her off, handing her the papers. "You've been served," he said, offering the divorce documents. Kendra's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, tears gathering before she could finish reading. "You're divorcing me?" Her voice trembled, almost inaudible. I crossed my arms. "What exactly did you think would happen?" Her lips trembled. "I messed up, but I still love you." A cold laugh escaped me. "Love? Is that what you call it?" She crumpled, sobbing right there on the porch. "Lucas, please, we can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can—" I leaned back, gripping the doorframe. "Maybe therapy will do you good. I'm fine. We're finished, Kendra." Without another word, I closed the door on her. I knew she'd be heading straight to Brielle's next. Soon after, we were in court. The judge, an elderly man with silver hair, looking weary from years of seeing it all, already knew about the international mess Kendra had created. As soon as she sat down, Kendra began making excuses, claiming that her fling with a younger man was just an attempt to rekindle our marriage. The judge massaged his temples, unimpressed. "Let's be clear, Mrs. Whitmore," he said. "This court does not consider adultery a valid way to improve a marriage." Kendra shrank into silence. The hearing moved quickly. My attorney was sharp, but the law was the law. I got to keep my mother's house and my inheritance, but everything else was split down the middle. Half of what I owned, gone with a signature. I finished the paperwork, sighing, wishing for a fleeting moment that we'd filed somewhere like the Maldives, where maybe things would have played out differently. A few days later, Kendra caught me outside the courthouse. She looked tired, defeated, much older than before. For once, she didn't try to hide it. "Lucas," she said softly, her voice frail. "I'm sorry." I stared at her for a long while before speaking. I was the one who called the authorities. I finally told her. Whatever remorse she had vanished, replaced by pure anger. "What?" she snapped. "I gave them the tip," I said calmly. "I made sure they knew exactly where you'd be." Her face contorted with rage. Without warning, she lunged at me, claws bared. People nearby gasped as others stepped in, holding her back before she could reach me. I straightened my jacket and met her glare, unfazed. "You just made things simpler for me," I said. The very next day, I filed for a restraining order, my final step in closing this chapter of my life. It had been 3 weeks since my last visit to the animal shelter, and as I walked in, I was met by that familiar cocktail of scents: shedding fur, industrial disinfectant, and the stubborn trace of wet dog. The building thrummed with the racket of barking, nails scratching against the floor, and tails thudding rhythmically against metal enclosures. A young employee sporting a logo-stamped shirt approached, assessing me as someone who might be taking a dog home. "Are you hoping to adopt a dog today?" she inquired. I glanced around at the rows of kennels. "I'm interested in German shepherds," I answered. Her eyebrows shot up in mild disbelief. "We actually have several. How many did you have in mind?" I couldn't help but smile. "5. She hesitated, clearly startled. "5 dogs? That's a serious commitment." I chuckled. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." She led me through the aisles, pointing out the shepherds they had. Some were energetic youngsters, full of exuberance. Others were older, more reserved, but still commanding respect. It didn't take me long to pick out my favorites. 5 outstanding German shepherds, each one unique, all alert and deeply loyal. As I completed the paperwork, I ran my hand over the biggest one's head. "What do you think, buddy? Brandon could only handle 2. I've got 5. "Who's the real champ now?" I murmured, watching his tail wag against the floor. My grin widened. "That's what I thought, friend." I couldn't deny it. A wave of quiet satisfaction washed over me as I settled my new pack into the back of my SUV. Meanwhile, Kendra got exactly what she'd been after. News quickly made the rounds that she had made a name for herself on OnlyFans, cultivating her image as mommy for her followers. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.